Apple and Microsoft beat back Nvidia.
Welcome to All Future, where we talk all things tech, AI, Apple, all things related to that, and what it means for the future. And that's in the name, I guess, All Future.
Oh, wow. We're pretty clever on that one. I'm glad that worked out.
If you're enjoying these videos, thank you so much for watching and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, consider giving us a subscribe. We're bringing these videos out throughout the week. And today we're talking about how Nvidia, once the most valuable company in the world by market cap, is now back down to third. So the ranks, at least at the time of filming this video, go Microsoft, Apple, and then Nvidia. So it looks like this is the end for Nvidia. This is
Shut it down, guys. You screwed it up.
It is funny to see like just a tiny market adjustment like that, or some company overtake, and then everybody loses their minds. People lose their minds over it and think it really means something, but it's always just some kind of course correction or some kind of adjustment to what is going on. And I think it's pretty clear that Nvidia is going to be at the forefront of technology for a long time, but it's interesting to consider at what point do their advancements level off? At what point does their competition that is currently partnering with them kind of overtake them? And this week we got some news about the latest partnership that NVIDIA is doing, and it's with Dell to build an NVIDIA AI training center for xAI, which is Elon's AI spinoff. I think it's directly related to X, and it's making Grok, which is their reference to Stranger in a Strange Land AI chatbot assistant. There's all of that for you.
Quite a journey for us to get there. I'm like, so there's XAI and this.
And so Elon's working on AI everywhere. He has xAI. They're working on it at X. They're working on it at Tesla. And then I guess they're probably working on it. It's to some degree at Neuralink, but Tesla does it. They're most obviously doing it with the Tesla bot, but it's in all of their cars, and that is the thing that is driving self-driving. So they do it at a very large scale. And so then you see him working on that and then being like, oh, for other stuff, I'm going to go elsewhere and do it at X. And so NVIDIA is doing a big build there.
At this point, not surprising because they're kind of the only game in town if you're looking to do this at large scale, right?
Yeah.
Like, who else are you gonna go with? You know, so it makes sense that we're going to see companies that probably haven't partnered with NVIDIA in the past partnering with them, especially if you want kind of off-the-shelf stuff that's going to start working. You know, like these huge companies, maybe not X, but Apple, Microsoft, these kind of people, they could afford to develop this stuff internally and do it themselves, or they can just spend the money, get it off the shelf, and have it working sooner, which seems to be kind of where everyone's landing on it. And again, NVIDIA just set themselves up, man. They set themselves up. You say like, I guess technically, it depends on how you judge a company, right? People use the phrase like third largest company in the world, and what that really means is market cap of the stock. So it's overall value of the stock. So maybe a better thing would be say most valuable company in the world, but even that is like a little getting kind of weird because you actually look at how much money they take in. It's a fraction of what Apple and Microsoft take in. It's not like they're dealing with more money. It's just their overall value of their overall at-large shares is higher, So it's
speculative.
Yeah, it's speculative
to a degree.
It 100% is, right?
Yeah.
Like if you actually sold all Nvidia's assets, it would not equal that amount of money.
Yeah.
So there's different ways of looking at it, but humans are competitive by nature, and it's fun to look at things as kind of a horse race between these companies. And we talked about this a lot, that AI and the rush to get AI in consumers' hands has made some kind of strange bedfellows, made people partnering that wouldn't normally partner together. And Elon, who is up and down all over the place, with critical of some of these companies, but then goes to them to use them. I guess, they're going with it for the Grok AI. I'm going to go ahead and confess something to you guys. I'm on this podcast multiple times a week, talking about AI a lot. This is probably one of our primary subjects. Use AI a lot, a proponent of AI in a lot of ways, a cautioner of AI in other ways. Think about AI all the time. Never used Grok once.
Yeah.
Never used it once. No idea if it's good. No idea what the interface looks like. Not on Twitter, so I'm not even, don't even have the app.
That'll do it. That's where it's built in.
Yeah. So it's like not even, but I'm not really on some of these other places, and I still will go check it out at least. This, I don't think there's been a compelling reason for me to look at this. As much as we've talked about AI, this is maybe the first time this has been a specific story about this and not just kind of an aside that we're mentioning. So I think that kind of says where they are in the kind of pecking order right now.
I think they kind of developed it quickly to show that they could, and to show, I don't know, maybe just competition. I think it maybe even launched its first version shortly after there was that OpenAI debate and all of the anger and animosity between OpenAI and Elon. So there's a lot going on there, but I think the reason this story matters is because, one, the CEO of Dell tweeted about building this, and it's a picture of it, and it's very impressive. There's a lot there. And then it's showing they're serious about this. It's not just like a small little AI chatbot that they did just for fun. Like, they're going to be serious about this, and they're going to train stuff with it. But the overarching question that this all leads to is, you see those top three companies, Apple or Microsoft, Apple, and Nvidia, in order currently, and they're all working together to some degree. Maybe not as much Apple and Microsoft directly on like a big scale, but Nvidia is working with the top two, and they're all enabling each other to stay up there right now. But of course, Apple doesn't like being beholden to a company, so they're gonna have to be with Nvidia through ChatGPT, with Nvidia for their own Apple AI. But we know that internally they're already building their own Apple Silicon kind of data farms, I guess, to a degree, to deliver these features of Apple Intelligence. So are they going to just be already working on this in the meantime so that they can eventually switch off of NVIDIA and have their own superior thing? Because we've seen this in the past with them with Intel. I actually remember when the Intel switch was a huge thing.
Remember when they switched to Intel.
Remember the PowerPC to Intel switch?
Yeah, when they switched to Intel and they had the guy in the clean suit or whatever come out, the little Intel mascot.
Oh,
at the
that was
time.
yeah,
and everyone was like, "Oh my god, which is so funny because Apple marketing before that was like PowerPC is way better than Intel. Like we're never, and then they're like, "Oh, we're actually going to switch to Intel."
Yeah. I remember, this is a random aside, but there's like a Postal Service, the band music video that's like exactly like that Apple ad, and the Apple ad came after. But the Apple ad was really cool. It's the first time I've thought about that in a long time.
Just kind of pulled that one back from the memory banks, came up.
For some reason, I had no idea what any of that meant, but I loved it as a kid. But in any case, the Intel switch now is basically complete. I think it is entirely complete. They've done the Mac Pro now. And so
switching from Intel to the M series chips. Yeah.
So Apple, basically, they were using Intel for a long time, and then they started having kind of issues with Intel. Intel's quality control wasn't as good. And then reportedly the iPhone was having issues in 2017 because of Intel missing deadlines. And then in 2019 or I think 18, they had to redesign a MacBook because of the Intel chip. And so they started getting tired of this, and then finally switched over to their own M chips and their own, I think the iPhone chips came first as their own chips.
Yeah, the A series chips first, yeah.
Yeah, and so they switched completely off, and now they have not looked back at all. The results are great. Their products are delivering much better performance overall. The M chips have been incredible for what they're delivering on Apple computers. So the idea is Apple's just probably going to do the same thing here with NVIDIA, unless NVIDIA can just keep knocking it out of the park and just beating every possible company in every metric.
Yeah, a couple things come to mind with this. One, there's one cardinal sin in the Apple kind of culture, and that is don't be late. Right? Like Apple is built on logistics. And they so much so that's actually what makes them have these huge successful products. There's a famous kind of military adage: amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics, right? Like, if you want to win wars, it's logistics, right? Apple famously, during the height of the pandemic, when shipping was really hard, basically just like outbid everyone and bought all the shipping to ship iPhones so they could launch the iPhone on time, right? So, and Intel was messing with that system. So you can't mess with that system if you're out. Like, get out of here. We got to ship these things because our whole cycle is built on this. So many moving parts come together to have all those iPhones in stores on launch day. So it wouldn't surprise me if they are looking at NVIDIA right now and going, well, right now they're doing pretty good for us. They're coming on time. They're kind of the only people we can go with for some of these things. But no way they want to stick with them long term. No way they want to stick with them long term. I bring up an example all the time, the Google Maps on the iPhone and why they developed Apple Maps. It's because Google eventually start to kind of screw them a little by having features that weren't available on iPhone's version of Apple Maps. Most famously, turn-by-turn navigation. Like that was first, and now it's everywhere. But that wasn't available. That was available on Android phones before iPhone. And so all of a sudden, Apple's like, we can't have this happening, right?
Yeah.
And Apple, I guess second largest company in the world by some metrics, but some would say the first in terms of ability to spend cash and having the ability to just invest and create things out of the air if they want to do that. I can't imagine this Nvidia thing is going to last that long on the Apple side, and not that there's really been a super tight partnership with them. They've just been going to them for some of these things because they just have to right now.
Yeah. Scale is overall the big thing here because we're seeing chips from AMD, Qualcomm, Apple making their own silicon, and then even Tesla has talked about their Dojo training computers. But all of these companies are developing these things, but if they're actually working on AI stuff, they're still partnering with Nvidia and buying Nvidia because scale is the name of the game there. If you need hundreds of thousands of these things, you have to manufacture them. And I think a good equivalent that I see a lot is I talk about Tesla a lot. And their biggest advantage right now is that they are scaled. So they can make this many electric cars because they're scaled. They have the logistics down. They can get this many batteries, which is kind of the core thing. A lot of these companies can push out a car and make a pretty compelling EV, but they can't do it at scale because they're not scaled to get that many batteries and source that many and make the cars on the level that Tesla is. So that's a big advantage right now. If you want to get a Tesla, you can. You can get one pretty soon, and it's available for you, and it's at the prices they say. Versus a lot of other companies, it's like, oh, wow, here's this awesome car I just saw a commercial for. Oh, it's not actually available. Or it's not available in numbers I thought, or it's only the top spec, or all of these issues. And that's probably the same thing we're seeing right now with Nvidia, is like you maybe have another option that's like, oh, this chip looks just as good, but I need 100,000 of them, and they're not going to deliver it. Yeah. And this company can do that. This company cannot. But as far as the partnering goes as well, there's the fact that Nvidia is going to be, they're already working on the software side of things in a big way. And that's even more so competing directly with Apple.
Yeah, I was going to say that maybe the one reason Nvidia may be positioned really well in this is because they aren't, as things stand right now, real direct competitors at all to any of these companies, so it's not like Nvidia has kind of made consumer tech products before. They've dabbled in it. Nvidia Shield, their gaming device that they made for a little bit, and obviously they sell graphics cards and things to consumers, but these aren't really one-to-one competitors at all with Google, Apple, or Microsoft. So I could see them keeping this run they're on for a long time because they have no reason to mess it up. But that being said, Apple works with competitors all the time on things where it makes a lot of sense. I mean, look at how many Sony and Samsung components are used in Apple devices. Companies that have direct competing devices to them, and they still use them where it makes sense to use them. So at the end of the day, no one's going to want to lose money. No one wants their stock price to go down, right? So they're going to pick the thing that kind of works best for them at these companies. So I imagine the NVIDIA partnerships are going to be lasting for the foreseeable future because just no one else was ready for this AI revolution and what it would need on the hardware side like NVIDIA was.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see where NVIDIA goes with this because they have to be looking far into the future. They did that already and they succeeded to where they're at now. And they have to be looking far into the future from here and thinking, okay, all of these companies are going to catch up at least to the AI training that we have today, the compute that we have today. We'll keep making it better, but at a certain point where all these things are trained or we've reached kind of a capacity that we don't need more AI power or it's already fast enough for humans. We don't need it faster. At what point are these companies catching up and then NVIDIA doesn't really have an advantage over anyone?
Yeah, I think still probably a little ways off on that, but they probably, and it seems like NVIDIA is already thinking about this a little. I mean, they've been kind of diversifying a little bit, right? We've seen them in the last month or so announce different little programs, the little AI avatar apps and all this kind of stuff. The Chat RTX, which is their kind of chat system they can use. So I think I'm sure that internally they've talked about, hey, like, what can we do with this? Right? All of a sudden, we have plenty of capital, plenty of people ordering from us. Let's take advantage of the situation even more. Should we be making more products? Right? Like, should we be thinking about an Nvidia powered at home smart system or something? I don't know.
Like
something,
your home computer that just base station, AI base
yeah,
station.
your little AI brain in your house made by Nvidia, something like that. I'm just pitching. I'm just pitching. I'm just blue sky pitching right now, but something like that maybe.
I think self-driving actually might be a pretty big thing there. They already partner with various companies. Rivian's the latest one that they've partnered with on like self-driving chips in their latest generation of their cars. And that could be a much bigger thing down into the future if they are also working on the software side and trying to solve this.
Yeah. I think like I always think about this as kind of an academic exercise because I don't actually ever do it. But it's like, oh, well, should I buy Nvidia stock right now? Right. And it's like, oh, I mean, this is classic bad investing, right? Because you're supposed to, buy low, sell high, not buy when it's at its all-time heights. But is there a question of like, oh, they've got so much more room, right? They're going to go way higher than this. This company's going to keep growing. I don't know.
Yeah. So just a quick basic stock market thing here is we are seeing the news littered with articles about Nvidia's stock price sliding and what it means. And this is just normal. This is how the stock market works. I think it's just because they had such a tear getting to the top and they were number one and now they're not. But it's especially when you're dealing with numbers as large as they are, which is trillions, $3 trillion of market cap. And it's so speculative. It's based on people looking into the future, like you're saying, where are they going to go from here? Should I buy now? Should I sell now when it's at its all-time high? All of this stuff. And a lot of this can be also driven by big firms selling.
Yeah.
And they're maybe just cashing in their profit. They still believe in the company, but they're taking their profit right now.
Yeah.
There's so many factors that can lead to these things.
Yeah. I mean, this is why the stock market is completely unfair for retail investors, right? Because like these large people can sell at all-time high. Just the act of them selling will make a 2-3% dip. They'll then buy the dip and then it'll go back up and they may have made 3 to 4% return on a couple of trades, right? And I'm looking at this article right now. It's like Nvidia bloodbath, and then you look at it and it's like, oh, we're off a few percentage points.
Yeah,
we're still up 10x on the year or something like that. Something crazy. So yeah, and the good news is, for Nvidia anyway, is that while that stock price is speculative and it's like people investing because they think it's going to keep growing, they are making the thing that people are buying.
Yeah.
It's not like the company's going to go bankrupt tomorrow, right? Like regardless of what the stock price is going to do, right? So I think the fundamentals of it are pretty good. That was not investing advice for people
Definitely
out there.
not.
But yeah, don't listen to us. We didn't buy Nvidia when we should have last year, so don't listen to us. We're terrible investors. Yeah, like I think it just feeds into. We're going to see this a lot. We're going to see this a lot, and I think people want to say, and you see this all the time right now. If you kind of go into like Reddit forums or something like that, and they'll say AI is a bubble. AI is a bubble. It's just like this bubble, or it's just like that bubble. The difference is with AI compared to these other things is that AI actually does something. It's delivering, right? Like it's like say the other recent bubbles, maybe the crypto bubble or something like that, or NFTs. I don't know, something crazy, right? These things were always all hype, like they never like the promise of crypto making some kind of egalitarian world economy was always crazy. Like no one ever actually used crypto except to invest in it. No one actually used it for what it's intended to. Whereas Nvidia and AI, it's not just people talking about this to push stock prices. They're making products. They're putting stuff out there. It's going to be in people's hands soon, right? So it's got a much longer lifespan, I think, than a typical kind of bubble situation.
Yeah, and they're kind of ubiquitous with AI at this point. Like even Apple doing their own silicon for their own training, they're going to be using Nvidia to a degree at those things, those farms or whatever you call them, and then they're also going to be using Nvidia by way of ChatGPT. So every company that is doing AI has to involve Nvidia at this point. And so, yeah, there is long term when you look at these things, there's probably going to be a point where we're bored of where every phone has every AI feature. We're used to it. It's just like having great smartphone cameras. We're kind of like, okay, how much better of a phone can you give me next year? But it's going to be a ways before we get there and a long time. So Nvidia probably has a good road ahead. But again, this is not investment advice. This is just about Nvidia as a company and what the products that they are bringing.
Yeah,
who knows what will happen with the stock?
Yeah, this is much more about. I believe in Nvidia as a company making a product. Who the stock's going to do what the stock's going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.